Hello learners. In today's lecture, we are going to discuss the last part of week 3, factors affecting intellectual development. We have already discussed social development. We have also discussed aspects of intellectual development. In today's class, which is the last part, part 3, we are going to discuss what are the factors affecting intellectual development. There are certain factors which affect intellectual development. They are heredity. Every child gets some level of intelligence by birth. It can sharpen or improve by providing experiences. Let me give you an example. Let's say I have a parent, or I have both the parents who are doctors, or I have both the parents who are musicians. A lot of time, more often, the child would get some level of their parents' genes, and the child may grow up to become a doctor like the parents, or the child may grow up to become a musician like the parents, or like the parents. So heredity is a very important factor which affects intellectual development. It can be sharpened or it can be improved by providing experiences. Heredity is very important, but not all children of doctors would become doctors. My parents may not be a doctor, my father or mother may not be a doctor, but then with by sharpening, by intellectual capacity, by improving my intellectual capacity, I may pursue to become a doctor because I want to become a doctor. So however, hereditary is also a very important part of intellectual development. Then you have what is your physical growth. Physical growth is an important aspect of intellectual development because it helps in the growth of a healthy body and healthy mind. Then the natural environment is very important. Natural environment in terms of fresh air, proper light, large space and greenery around, which helps in cognitive development. And also family development, where if you have proper family development in terms of your parents understands you, in terms of your parents inculcate proper values in you, your family gives you quality time, you spend quality times together, then your parents are able to provide for you in terms of they're able to provide books and magazines for you. They are able to provide experience enriching opportunities which sharpen your intellectual and mental development. And another very important part or aspect or factors affecting intellectual development is a socio-economic status. For example, parents who have better resources, parents who have more wealth, are able to provide better opportunities in terms of they are able to secure admissions for children. For their children, let's say their children or their child is interested to go abroad to for further studies. The parents who have better resources or parents who are wealthy would be able to do so than parents who have less resources will not be able to provide for their children. Then also school environment is very important part of your intellectual development. When I talk about school environment, an ideal school environment would be a school which has a garden, a good playground, a good library, well-equipped laboratories, good guidance from teachers, educative co-curricular programs, and also a formative discipline which affects or which helps in better mental development. So a holistic environment is very important in terms of with regard to how the child would grow. And when I talk about holistic development, like I said, the school environment is very important in terms of how the school, an ideal school should be, wherein a proper garden, playground, good library, well-equipped laboratories, good guidance from teachers, well-balanced co-curricular activities, and so on and so forth. So when we discussed the factors affecting intellectual development, these are the factors which we just discussed about, which are very important aspects for intellectual development. Your heredity, then your physical growth, then you have a proper school environment, natural environment, then the resources of the parents is also very important. All these aspects are balanced properly, then you have the children more often than not growing into an intelligent boy or girl. So these are very important aspects of intellectual development. Now let us talk about what are the stages of intellectual development. Piaget worked on child developmental psychology for 50 years, and he divides intellectual development in 4 stages for the logical and cognitive development of children. According to Piaget, the first stage is called sensory motor stage. What happens in the sensory motor stage? The first stage is from birth to 2 years, and it is the sensory motor stage wherein the infant coordination of reflexes and sensory motor repetition leading up to basic recall of absent objects and to an experimental search for new means to achieve pleasurable ends. During the sensory motor stage, the baby can activate his or her intellectual development, basic reflexes such as sucking, grasping, turning his or her head, and it is the origin of mental development. The sensory motor schemes of infancy permit interactions with the environment that eventually lead to the development of object permanence. Once the children acquire object permanence, however, they understand that objects have an existence independent of their perception of them. For instance, if a toy is hidden under the blanket, then the child who have object permanence will lift up the blanket and start searching for the toy. So, this is what is meant by object permanence. Through the acquisition of information about self and the world, the baby begins to understand how one thing can cause or affect another and begins to develop simple ideas about time and space. For example, when the baby is fed by his mother, the baby would know now this is the time to eat. When the mother or the father puts the baby to sleep, the baby would come to know that it is time to sleep. So this is the time, this is the stage when baby starts realizing, developing simple ideas about time and space. And this is what is called the first stage, that is the sensory motor stage. Then we have what is called the pre-operational stage. What is the pre-operational stage? The pre-operational stage is the second stage, and during this stage, children's thought processes are in a developing stage. Although they are still considered to be far from logical thought, children in this stage develop cognitive structures called symbolic schemes that allow them to represent objects or events by means of symbols such as language, mental images, gesture. For example, if I do like this, the child will start to understand that I am liking his or her work. And if I put my finger on the lips, the child would know that, I am asking the children to keep quiet. So there are certain gestures which children would start recognizing and would know that these symbols represent, or they are represent certain things. It is either appreciating the work or telling the child to keep quiet. To a child capable of symbolic representation, a cloud may represent a cone ice cream, a broken handle can be a pistol, or an empty box can resemble a castle. This is a period of magical thinking. This is the stage, the pre-operational stage, when children are in their dream world. They have this period of magical thinking when they would when they see the cloud, they will think about a cone ice cream. When they see an empty box, they would try to relate the box into a castle. So this is the period that is a period of magical thinking, in the sense that the child would easily confuse apparent or imagined events with real events. For example, a child may think that he or she can jump out of the window because he has seen birds fly, so he or she may try to jump out of the window, and the child is in something of a dream world. A toy car for the child is very much the real thing to a child. And in the pre-operational stage, children view situations from their perspective and are unable to understand a situation from another person's point of view. For example, during this particular stage, that is the pre-operational stage, the child is not able to understand the relationship between his or her mother has with her or his grandmother. So this pre-operational stage, children view situation only from their perspective, but are not able to understand a situation from another person's points of view. Like I gave you an example how a child may not be able to understand his or her mother's relationship with his or her grandmother. The vocabulary of a child in this pre-operational stage is also expanded and developed during this stage, as they change from babies and toddlers into little people. The predominant mode of representation of the world becomes auditory, with memories featuring received commands. Animism is also a characteristic of the pre-operational stage. This is when a person has a belief that everything that exists has some kind of consciousness. A reason for this characteristic of the stage is that the pre-operational child often assumes that everyone and everything is like him. Since the child can feel pain and has emotions, so must everything else. Pre-operational children are usually egocentric. They are only able to consider things from their own point of view and imagine that everyone shares this view because it is the only one possible. So this is the stage. At this pre-operational stage, children are usually egocentric. They see things only from their point of view, and a child in this stage, that is in the pre-operational stage, often assumes that children and everyone is like him and everything will be possible only from his point of view. We have talked about the sensory motor stage. We have talked about the pre-operational stage. We have the third stage, which is the concrete operational stage, and this is usually between 7 to 11 or 6 to 12, when the child can symbolize, that is, can make a concrete mental image of operation without having to do them physically. During this stage, the thought process becomes more rational, matured, and operational. So in this stage, the child is able to make a concrete mental picture of certain things, is able to recognize certain symbols without having to do them physically, And concrete operation permits children to serializing or grouping items. For example, they can order objects on some dimension, shape, such as they are able to arrange things from the shortest to the tallest, or from the lightest to the heaviest. This process often continues well into the teenage years. So when we talk about the concrete operational stage, this is usually between 6 to 12 or 7 to 11. The child can symbolize and can make concrete mental image of operations without having to do them physically. And during this stage, the thought process of the child in the concrete operational stage becomes more rational, matured, and operational. The child develops realistic internal imaging of the world around him. The child is able to develop or imagine the world around him, and by 7 or 8 years of age, a concrete visual mode of representation becomes the predominant way of thinking. He or she learns to classify and relate, to measure distances and quantities, and thereby perform constructive thinking. Then we have, after the concrete operational stage, we have what is called the formal operational stage. This is between 11 to 12 years, and by the time they are during this stage, this is called the formal operation stage. This is the beginning of adolescence, where children learn handling more complex problems that involve more factors. For example, they can solve the puzzles, correctly arrange things on the basis of color, height, and size. In this, there is a more objective way of perceiving the world, with ability to focus simultaneously on several aspects of a problem. Piaget called this tendency decentration. So at this stage, which is the formal operation stage, the child is able to handle more and more complex problems. If you see children during this age who are between, let's say, 11 to 15, we see that from the syllabus or from the subjects they are carrying. Let's say, for example, if you happen to see the maths book, or if you happen to see the science book, or any other subject for that matter, you would see that, you know, the problems that are in the subject, or the syllabus or the contents of the courses becomes more and more complex with their age. And when we talk about this stage, adolescent stage, this stage permits adolescents to reason beyond a world of concrete reality and evaluate their logical validity without making reference to real-world circumstances. In contrast, concrete operational children can evaluate the logic of statements from considering them against concrete evidence only. For Piaget, intelligence is defined as the ability to adapt to the environment, an ability that depends upon physical and psychological organization. So this stage permits adolescents to reason beyond a world of concrete reality and evaluate their logical validity without making reference to real world circumstances. And in this particular stage, Piaget says that they are able to use their intelligence and are able to adapt to the environment. They are able to have a better understanding of complex problems, complex situation, and so on. The adaptation process has two complementary components. When we are talking about intelligent development, when we are talking about intelligence, Piaget says that intelligence is also the ability to adapt to the environment, and this ability has two complementary components, which are assimilation and accommodation. What is assimilation? How does assimilation helps you in your adoption, in your adaptation process? Assimilation refers to the tendency to process new information with distortion in terms of existing cognitive structure. On the other hand, accommodation refers to the opposite process, that is, the modification of existing cognitive structures in response to new information. An individual strives for equilibrium between assimilation and accommodation without being neither unrealistic, that is, having too much of excessive assimilation would be unrealistic, nor excessively realistic, which means excessive accommodation. So an individual should strive for equilibrium between assimilation and accommodation. That is, you should not have what is called your excessive assimilation, or you should not have what is called excessive accommodation. When we talk about intellectual development, the role of parents and teachers are very important. They have significant roles to play. They help the learner, especially the teacher. When we talk about teacher, what is the role of the teacher? The teacher can help the learner acquire new content in terms of a familiar structure. The best method is to help the learner and teach him on a level he can easily understand, and the learner can assimilate new content to old structure. It is the teacher's job to promote assimilation and accommodation in the learner. A teacher may have learners who are slow learners, and a teacher may have learners who are fast learners. So the teacher should be able to accommodate both slow learners and fast learners, or at times the teacher may involve the slow learners more in the class, so that the sense of confidence develop in the slow learners, or the teacher may also spend extra time with the slow learners. So there are a lot of ways by which teacher can help the learner acquire a new content and also improve his or her intellectual development. While kids are influenced by peer and popular media, parents impact the development of the children more than any other source. Continuing to read to and to be with children, to give them quality times, playing games, planning outings that are both fun and intellectually stimulating, and encouraging kids a natural desire to make decisions for themselves are all things that parents can do to help their preteens or to help children in their intellectual development, or to improve their intelligence quotient. So the role of parents and teachers are very important. Like I said again and again, the parents are the first school of learning. So when the children are in their infancy, it is very important for the parents to involve the children, to spend quality time with the children, to read to play with the children, to plan things, to make the childhood fun, and also encouraging children to make the decision, because this is the stage before they go to school, when they are at a stage when a lot of impression, a lot of memory would be stuck for life. And so if they have good memories, if the parents are able to cultivate good memories, if they are able to, if the parents are able to inculcate proper values, they would become obedient citizens, they would become what is called good citizen in life. Because when children teach their children what is good, what is bad, what are the values to be followed, then children grow up to become good citizens. So this is the stage when parents play a very important role, and also the role of the teachers, who can or influence the or increase the intellectual development of children. So my dear learners, with this particular lecture, I have completed part 3 of intellectual development. In the 3 parts, I have talked about social and intellectual development. I have talked about aspects of intellectual development, and I have also talked about factors affecting intellectual development. Thank you so much.